Hello, dear friends. In this video, I want to talk to you about loneliness. Although, honestly, what is there to say? If you've experienced it or are experiencing it now, you understand. You don't need any extra information. You could probably just add something to my video, something to my story. But I want to show where loneliness comes from. What is loneliness? It's a feeling. That is when you feel you're in the moment, after a breakup, or simply when you're missing someone, you experience a painful feeling of loneliness. I'm talking specifically about the pain right now. And this pain, first and foremost, comes from childhood. Yes, you may have been lonely throughout your life, but in childhood there were moments when you were left alone. These are the key or fundamental situations in your life where loneliness began to form. What are these moments? It's when your mother leaves you at your grandmother's in the village just with your grandparents. You don't know them well, maybe they're kind. Then you realize that. But at that moment, when your mother leaves, you feel a deep sense of loneliness. It's a state of abandonment. And this unbearable feeling is what lies behind the feeling of loneliness. In other words, loneliness itself is a bearable feeling. You can experience it, you live with it, but there is a state that you simply cannot endure. It's a very bitter, acute experience. And this loneliness is actually a warning so that you don't fall into that bitter experience like you did in childhood. Episodes you may not remember, but which happened somewhere around the age of 2, 3, or 4. Although sometimes children do encounter this directly when they wake up alone, cry out, call for someone, but no one is there. They wander around the apartment or the house and still no one is there. And they realize that they've been abandoned. A child's brain perceives this as the absolute end. It's over, finished. Because what does it mean if there's no mom at that moment when she was always there, always nearby, and now she's gone? And she leaves you with your grandmother. You were left at kindergarten. You were even forgotten somewhere, maybe even lost. At that moment, when the connection with your mother is broken, when you are separated, in that very moment, your mother becomes the most valuable thing to you. In other words, she gains extraordinary value, exceptional value. She was valuable before too. Why is she valuable? Because mother equals food. Because food comes to the child's mouth through the mother's hands, through the mother's breast. Food goes directly into the mouth. So in the child's brain, the association is mother equals food. And when the mother disappears, then mother and food are gone, which equals death. In other words, it equals terror. Why are we afraid of experiencing this loneliness? It's like a warning that says, look, something bad is going to happen there. That's why we rush into relationships we shouldn't get into. Specifically, we rush in because we need to jump into something at full speed just so it won't hurt so much or feel so miserable. We endure, we put up with it. Maybe it'll work out over time. For the sake of something, anything, just to avoid ending up alone. We fall into loneliness and a very bitter, unbearable feeling. How do you work through loneliness? What are you even supposed to do about it? Well, many people just live with it. Many, as I've already said, avoid it. Some retreat into loneliness, and some even enjoy being alone. There will definitely be someone in the comments under this video, someone who enjoys solitude or even hides in it. For those who were bothered by relationships when things were tough in some kind of relationship or after leaving their parental relationships, why would I want to get into similar relationships again? What kind of relationships? Bad relationships. In other words, a person's associative experience. Someone who sits alone and realizes there's no point in entering into relationships. Why is that? Because in relationships, what do you need? To make an effort for someone else, to do things, to come home earlier, to put up with things, to sacrifice your own, for example, your own time, to sacrifice your values, interests, hobbies. For whom? For the sake of children, for the wife, for her parents, for his parents. You get what I mean? So, why would I want to get into such relationships? I'll just sit alone. Some people simply hide in solitude. If you ask those who enjoy being alone, ask them, if you enter a relationship, what awaits you there? Well, there will be some kind of downside. Where does this experience come from? That's exactly where this experience comes from. Exactly. That's why loneliness, in any case, it follows a person. Why? Because the worst thing, worse than loneliness, is loneliness within a relationship. That's just absolutely the worst. Because when you feel lonely in a relationship, you end up experiencing so many additional traumas. Why? Because when you're alone, you have a clear explanation. I'm alone, and I experience loneliness as a simple fact. I'm alone as a fact. Isn't that right? As a fact. I am alone right now. And at this moment, I experience loneliness, and well, it's logically explained why you feel lonely. But here I'm with someone, here I'm together with someone, but for some reason I still feel lonely. What is this feeling of loneliness? Where does this thing come from? It also comes from childhood. You also felt this loneliness as a child, when your needs are not met, chronically unmet, when this partner doesn't fulfill your needs. Children don't need. And so this experience of loneliness, what makes it worse? Let me explain why. Here, I explain the fact of loneliness logically, but from here I can go into a relationship and there I might not experience loneliness. There's an assumption that relationships are a salvation for me. In this case, but in the case where I'm with someone yet I feel lonely, then when I leave these relationships I feel total loneliness and it becomes even more painful. Or I'm together with someone, but I still feel lonely. This state is much more terrifying, hopeless, right? Than when I'm simply alone as a fact. I can call some friends. It doesn't matter. Or just take the dog out. But here, I am alone. I'm together. There are children around me, but I'm still lonely. But the feeling of loneliness is your own feeling. Meaning it's inside you. And whether you are alone or in a relationship with someone but still feel lonely, it is your feeling of loneliness and you need to work on it. It can be turned off, meaning you can work through it until it goes away. This loneliness. You can go back to your childhood, of course, and ideally you should find episodes where you felt lonely back then. You can work specifically with the feeling of loneliness, this very loneliness right now. Many people say that the feeling of loneliness is like anxiety. Some people, more precisely, those who are good at self-reflection, can confirm that loneliness is like a signal that something is wrong in your relationships. Something needs to be done, someone is pushing you, yes. Loneliness pushes you toward relationships as a signal. A signal of what? As I said, you end up in some kind of unbearable, bitter, painful feeling, just like back in childhood. Some people don't remember their childhood, and that's why they can't work through episodes from that time, but there is the feeling itself, the feeling of loneliness. You can simply immerse yourself in it, the feeling of loneliness, again, and then switch to the opposite. Well, for example, into some kind of togetherness, a sense that you are with someone, like, I don't know, friends or some memory of yours. In order to break free from dependence on people, specifically maybe on people with whom you used to be together and it felt good. Being alone feels bad. Being together feels good. Loneliness feels bad. Being together feels good. Loneliness feels bad. This is how you go back and forth, switching from one to the other. So you just close your eyes, recall the feeling of loneliness, and really feel it. You don't need to stay in that pain for long. Just touch the peak of that feeling for a second, then switch to the memory of being with someone, like, for example, friends. It's so fun, so good, so together. Just feel that sense of togetherness in general. In other words, a sense of unity, not just generalization, but unity. When you're together with the feeling of we are together, and you alternate together, alone. This is actually a mechanism within us. It's simply how our psyche works. Because what does together really mean? It's just one. And only here does it all come together. Unity is created. So we call all of this a group, friends, family. But in essence, each of us is here, alone. That's why the feeling of loneliness is purely your own feeling. It's not a fact like I am a lonely person, I am alone. I am lonely when I feel loneliness, then I can call myself lonely. No, with a painful sense of loneliness. And this pain can be separated from yourself by working through your dependence on being with others, on unity, on merging, and the feeling of loneliness. Merging, the feeling of loneliness, merging, loneliness. You move away from merging, you move away from loneliness. Where do you return to? To the fact, I am alone. I can enter into relationships, be in relationships, but there I am, independent. This does not mean that you have to leave a relationship if you feel independent. No. You simply become an independent person. But you still have needs. They decrease after working through loneliness, connection. Yes, of course, then you can leave. If the relationship is unhealthy, you can leave such a relationship and feel perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't form relationships. Relationships are interesting. Just curious. Even if you are completely independent of relationships, it's still more interesting to be in a relationship. That's the point. So who is an adult, a whole person? An adult, meaning a psychologically whole person, is someone who can be both in a relationship and without one, who doesn't depend on relationships, doesn't depend on a partner, doesn't depend on anything. Children are dependent, we adults are not. And so I am not dependent. So what? Why shouldn't I get into a relationship? What's the problem? Get into a relationship? Be in a relationship? Don't be in a relationship? Spend some time single? Spend some time in a relationship? What difference does it make? Relationships are interesting. And when you feel at peace being alone, it means that you feel uneasy somewhere with someone. And that uneasiness is neurosis, and it's your dark spots in relationships being highlighted for you. I'll talk about this separately in another video. Let me summarize once again. Work through the feeling of loneliness, the sense of togetherness, merging unity with someone. Togetherness, togetherness, loneliness, togetherness, loneliness. So here you have pleasure, here you have pain, here is pleasure, here is togetherness, and here is pain. That's it, just alternate between them. Feel the loneliness, spend 1, 2, 3 seconds at the very bottom of that feeling, and then jump into togetherness. Do the same, feel it, enter into it, savor it. One cycle takes about 30 seconds, maybe 40 for some people, and for others it might go by very quickly. So you don't need to torture yourself in loneliness, that's all. And you do this for several days. Maybe at first you'll do it for 30 minutes or so. You've completed a cycle, that's it. The next day we worked for another 30 minutes. In about a week you'll notice that your loneliness decreases because your sense of independence starts to appear and grow. That's it. Instead of a sense of community, you can alternate with a feeling of calm, wu, where you felt at peace. In peace, without restlessness, for example, mountains, seas, oceans, fields, rivers, lakes, and that's it. And you alternate, and that's it. Mountains, loneliness, mountains, loneliness, mountains, loneliness, mountains, loneliness, mountains, loneliness. And that's it. Loneliness decreases, the mountains stay the same, but your wholeness returns. This won't restore your complete wholeness. You need to remove, of course, the neurosis and the core of the neurosis, but that's a separate video. That would be very long. That's all. Good luck with your work on this.